In this lesson, we're going to learn how to create an exam using KMxAuthor interactions. We've got a blank template in front of us where we haven't entered anything yet, and what we're going to do is we're going to give our first slide a title of Final Exam, and then we're going to get rid of the rest of this and go over to the Create Interactions menu. On that menu, there's three options. The center one is Multiple Selection Interaction. That's the one that you'll use to create test items. Go ahead and select that and hit Go. That'll bring up some fairly detailed instructions on how to use the multiple selection interaction. I'm not going to read through all that right now. I'm going to take you down to the actual builder so that you can see how one of these is built. And we're going to put in our first question. What is the best e-learning authoring tool? And then for answer one, we're going to put KMxAuthor. And for answer two, we'll put vendor A. And then for answer three, we'll put vendor B. And for answer four, we'll put vendor C. Okay, so we've got a question. Let's turn it in with a question mark. And we've got four potential answers. And the second column over here gives us what the response will be from the system based on the user selecting that answer. So for response number one, we'll type correct, just a very simple example of how to create a test item. And for the rest of them, we'll say incorrect, just to give the student some feedback. These can be as long as you need them to be for your remediation string for the user. Okay, now we've got a basic question all stenciled out. Let's go ahead and test that question. Okay, what is the best e-learning authoring tool? KMxAuthor, vendor A, vendor B, vendor C. Well, at this point, we have not indicated a correct answer. So what we will need to do if we're going to make this a test item is give it a correct answer. So we're going to make the correct answer number one. And then when the user selects that answer, they will get the remediation response for that answer. Once they've selected one with a correct answer indicated, they'll be locked out of any other selecting any other options. Okay, and we're also going to use the slide score, which means whatever weight is associated with the slide that this question is on, whatever points are assigned to that slide will be awarded based on their correctly answering this question. Okay, so every one of these elements we can have a different background for. So for the question, we'll set background of something, let's see, let's make it something like that. That would be nice. Make it a little darker. And then we'll give it a nice light font. And you can go ahead and test these whenever you want just to see what your color scheme is going to look like. And then for my answers, we'll go ahead and do something similar. Let's go ahead and make it kind of a dark brown. And we'll make the font also a very light color. So we got a good contrast. And again, it's a good idea to test these as you go. So here we go. We've changed the colors of the questions and the answers. Now we need to give a color and a correct response for correct and incorrect responses. So for the background on a correct response, we'll go with green, and we'll make it a very light green. and leave the dark black font. And then for our incorrect response, we'll go with a red and leave it a light red with our, again, dark font. And then we can create and test that as well. And when the user selects the correct answer, they get the green background with the correct response. And if they select an incorrect answer, they get the red background with the incorrect response. Now, again, these can all be different for every one of your questions. So you can, provide, questions and remediation, to whatever length you need. Just remember, you're filling up the screen with these things when you do that. But the system isn't going to limit you to that. So once you're happy with the way it looks, the best thing to do is to copy that, okay, and then put your cursor where you want it to appear, and you can paste it with Control V or right click and paste into your lesson. Okay, so now we've got that in the lesson. And it can be used. Let's say that we made an error and then we want to change it. All we have to do is click on it, and it'll bring it back up in the with all the same colors and everything all filled out. We don't have to redo anything. But let's say in this case I want it to center on the screen. So I use the position down here, to select how I want it to show on the screen, and I'm going to select center. Okay, and then all I have to do is hit update to make that change. Now, in KMxAuthor, I'm going to go ahead and add a slide below. One of the nice features here is that if you've got something that looks good and you like the way it's laid out, you just click on it with these interactions. You can copy that element and you can paste it into another slide and just change the questions. So that's a nice feature there. Every time you create a new question, it creates a new ID for the question, so you don't have to worry about that with your SCORM data. The SCORM data is going to have a unique ID associated with every question you create, and then when you edit the question, it maintains the ID that it had originally. So again, you won't lose any SCORM interactions data by copying these things over and over and over again. And the best thing to do is just edit, copy, edit, copy, edit, copy if you're going to create a long exam with the same format questions. It's a very quick way to get your thing filled out. Now I'm going to go ahead and delete this slide for right now because we don't really need that question again. I'm going to add another slide at the end that will say thank you, and in one of our future lessons we'll show you how to put their interaction on the screen to show them their score, their time, lesson status, and elements like that. But for now we're just going to go ahead and finish up our question. Now, we said we were going to use slide scoring, which means we've got to put a score associated with this slide. So we're going to make that one question worth 70 points on a scale from 1 to 100, which is what the SCORM standard prescribes. And then we're going to set a passing score up here at the top of 70. So if they get it right, they pass. And then you can also set a base score to give them a base points. A lot of authors like to deduct points for students making a wrong selection instead of adding points for making a right selection. And this can also come in real handy when you've got a mix between questions and simulations in a single lesson where you want to deduct points for them navigating to the wrong slide or making the wrong selection on an image map in a simulation, and also preserve the ability to have some test questions at the end where they can get get points added to their score. So again, kind of think through your scoring before you get started, how you want to do it with regard to starting from some people will start from 0 and add points. Some people will start from 100 and detract points, or some combination in between. But we've got our first test question built and in the system. And what I'd like to do is go ahead and save this now. And I'm going to shift over to the preview side of this. We're going to go ahead and refresh that. And here is our final exam question. You can see right now I'm on screen 1 of 2. I've got a score of 0. And if I get this question right, which I did, okay, when I proceed, you can see now my score is 70. Okay, I'm going to reset this just to show the alternatives. I'm going to not return to my bookmark location, which will reset the score. And in this case, I'm going to select the wrong answer. Now, one thing you don't see on the screen right now is the next button. Okay, because it's a scored element, the navigation of the presentation has been suspended until the user student makes a selection. They've got to give some answer to the question. Now you could also in a scored exam use 0 as your correct answer and force them to select all 4 answers. That would be really useful if you want them to review information on a screen and get a score associated with that. And that can also be an unscored element. Again, just review the quick start instructions for all the options here. You can have true, false. You could have 3 answer, 4 answer, select one, select all. There's just a number of options. Today we're just trying to cover the basics of a single selection multiple choice question. But in this case, now I'm going to select an incorrect answer. And you can see the next button has now appeared. I've got the incorrect remediation response, which again could have been anything that we wanted to type in there. And I'm able to proceed, but you can see I've got a score of 0 at this point. Now, of course, I've failed at this point. And in the next segment of our tutorials, we're going to show you how to insert progress reports for the end user so they can see how they're doing, and not just their score, but their score, their time, their lesson status, and other elements, which is one of the interactions that we'll be covering in our next lesson. So that's it for today. Thank you, and come back for our next one, hopefully tomorrow.